By 1085, William the Conqueror had held England for nearly 2 decades, but his control was fractured, still threatened by persistent internal rebellions. The occupiers faced a massive demographic imbalance. A small elite of roughly 8,000 Norman landholders was attempting to permanently subjugate a native population of 1.5 million English subjects. To pacify the country, the Normans constructed a massive network of fortifications, but physical structures like the White Tower had reached their operational limits. The crown lacked precise financial data. The administration did not know the exact monetary worth of the kingdom, nor could it track the scattered, decentralized estates held by its own barons. A regime cannot permanently extract wealth from an empire it cannot measure. To consolidate their hold, the Normans needed comprehensive data. At the Christmas Council of 1085 in Gloucester, William convened his magnates and issued a mandate for a kingdom-wide survey. This survey functioned as a hostile, high-stakes financial audit, allowing an occupying force to quantify the spoils of a stolen kingdom. The mandate had 3 core objectives: quantify the exact military quotas owed by the kingdom, monitor the wealth of the newly established Norman barons, and legally codify the expropriation of Anglo-Saxon land. This data was collected to optimize a specific extraction mechanism, the geldum, a national land tax paid on a fixed assessment. The Great Survey represented a calculated evolution in medieval statecraft. The primary weapon of the occupation shifted from the battlefield to the bureaucracy. To execute the audit, England was divided into 7 distinct circuits, with teams of royal commissioners, the legati, dispatched to each region. The data collection was physically intimidating. Native English representatives were summoned to local shire courts, forced to testify while guarded by heavily armed Norman knights. For every 100, the local administrative subdivision, a jury of 12 men was forced to provide sworn testimony. These juries were split evenly between the occupied and the occupiers, 6 English and 6 Norman. The commissioners demanded exhaustive specifics. Juries had to recount the exact number of hides of land, active plows, working mills, livestock, and enslaved individuals. This was an armed interrogation. The state methodically stripped local communities of their financial secrets. To reclassify the captured wealth, the survey deployed a core legal weapon, a allodial title. A allodial title was the legal fiction that the king was the sole ultimate owner of all land in England. It invalidated all pre-existing native ownership claims. Under this framework, surviving Anglo-Saxons were legally reclassified. They no longer owned their ancestral lands, they merely held them as tenants of the crown. The audit required a strict 3-tiered valuation for every plot. The juries had to report the land's value before 1066 under King Edward, its value when granted to the new Norman lord, and its exact value at the time of the survey. The commissioners even calculated the potential future value of the land, mapping the absolute upper limits of the crown's taxation power. By participating in these sworn juries, the English inadvertently provided the exact data required to legally cement their own permanent dispossession. The raw returns from the shire courts were transported back to the central hub of Norman administration, the Royal Treasury in Winchester. Here, the administration executed a massive editorial process. Geographical data was stripped of its local community context and strictly reorganized around the tenant-in-chief who held the land directly from the king. This synthesized data was compiled into 2 final volumes. Little Domesday retained detailed records, while Great Domesday was heavily abbreviated. During compilation, scribes abbreviated native terms into harsh administrative Latin, orthographically erasing the English language from the legal record. The translation process reduced complex human communities and centuries of local tradition into a cold, highly efficient fiscal grid. The physical finality of the audit was absolute. The completed records were bound in sheepskin vellum to form massive, unalterable ledgers. The Normans did not give the manuscript a formal title. Administratively, it was known simply as the Liber de Wintonia, or the Book of Winchester. But by the 12th century, the native English had given it a new name, Domesday, an explicit allusion to the Last Judgment. Richard Fitzneal, treasurer under King Henry II, explained the metaphor. Because the book's assessments of land and tax were final and could not be quashed or appealed, its decisions were considered inescapably final. The physical artifact was heavily guarded as a weapon and statecraft, stored securely for centuries to settle legal disputes over property. The Domesday Book finalized the occupation through the permanence of the written record, locking an entire nation into a